When most people think about the Clone Wars, they think about lightsabers, Jedi generals, and massive space battles. But none of that matters without one thing: money. Because armies don't fight for free, clones aren't grown for free, starships aren't built out of hope and democracy. So today we're answering a question Star Wars almost never explains directly. How did Palpatine actually pay for the Clone Wars? And once you understand the answer, you realize something disturbing. Palpatine didn't just control the war, he controlled the entire economic system that made the war possible. Let's start with the obvious problem. The clone army was enormous. Millions of genetically engineered soldiers, accelerated aging, advanced combat training, top-tier armor, weapons, vehicles, and starships. In real-world terms, this would be the most expensive military project in history. So expensive, in fact, that the Republic should never have been able to afford it. And here's the key detail most people miss. The Republic didn't even know the clone army existed until the war had already started. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If the Senate didn't approve it, if the Jedi didn't commission it, then who paid the initial bill? The answer leads us directly to Palpatine. In Attack of the Clones, the clone army is already finished by the time the Republic discovers it. That means someone financed this project years in advance, completely off the books. And that someone was Darth Sidious. But Palpatine didn't use his own personal wealth. Instead, he did something far more dangerous. He put the Republic into massive debt. Through intermediaries, shell organizations, and political manipulation, Palpatine arranged for the clone army to be funded by the InterGalactic Banking Clan. In other words, the Republic didn't buy an army. They borrowed one. And just like the real world, debt comes with strings attached. The InterGalactic Banking Clan wasn't just a bank. It was a financial empire that controlled loans, credit, and currency across the galaxy. And here's the genius part of Palpatine's plan. While publicly serving as Supreme Chancellor of the Republic, Palpatine secretly ensured that the same banks financing the Republic were also financing the Separatists. Both sides of the war were funded by the same system, which meant one thing: no matter who won a battle, the banks always won. Every destroyed ship meant reconstruction contracts. Every fallen clone meant new production orders. Every year of war meant more interest, more debt, and more leverage over the Republic Senate. Palpatine didn't just allow corruption. He designed the war to depend on it. Once the Clone Wars began, stopping them became almost impossible. Why? Because the entire galactic economy reorganized around war. Shipyards were running at full capacity. Weapons manufacturers were making record profits. Entire planets depended on military contracts to survive. Peace wasn't just politically inconvenient, peace was economically disastrous. And Palpatine understood this perfectly. Every emergency power he requested from the Senate was justified by the same argument. We can't stop now. It would collapse everything. Sound familiar? That's not the Force at work. That's economic hostage-taking. The Jedi believed they were fighting a military war. Palpatine was fighting a financial one. The Jedi studied the Force, diplomacy, and combat. But they never studied supply chains, banking systems, or economic incentives. They didn't realize the war couldn't end, because too many powerful people were making money from it. By the time the Jedi sensed the dark side clouding the Republic, it was already too late. The system itself had become Sith-aligned. Not because it was evil, but because it rewarded endless conflict. Here's the most terrifying part. Order 66 didn't require wealth. The Clone Wars did. Palpatine spent years bleeding the Republic financially, so that when the time came, the transition to Empire would feel inevitable. The Republic was exhausted, in debt, desperate for stability, and Palpatine offered exactly that: an empire that promised order, efficiency, and control, paid for by the very war that destroyed democracy. The Clone Wars weren't just a tragedy of the Jedi. They were a lesson about systems. Palpatine didn't win because he was the strongest Sith. He won because he understood something far more powerful than the Force. Money decides which wars get fought and which ones never end. By the time the galaxy realized what had happened, the debt was too deep, the economy was too dependent, and the Empire felt like the only option left. So the next time you watch the Clone Wars, remember this. Behind every lightsaber duel, behind every clone battalion, there was a balance sheet, and Palpatine controlled every line of it.